The courtroom stretched across 3 football fields, its crystalline walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that cast everything in shades of violet and silver. General Krathox stood at the center podium, his 6 arms folded across his chitinous chest, mandibles clicking in what the galaxy recognized as amusement. The War Tribunal had assembled representatives from 47 civilizations, each one eager to witness what they assumed would be humanity's final humiliation. "Behold," Krathox announced, his voice amplified through neural transmitters that made every species hear him in their native tongue. "The architects of their own extinction. Humans. Fragile, short-lived, technologically primitive mammals who thought they could play among the stars." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The Vex delegates, beings of pure crystallized thought, shimmered with what passed for their version of mockery. The Thornback Empire's representative, a creature resembling an armored whale with too many teeth, released a sound like grinding continents. Even the usually stoic Zenari collective allowed their hive mind to emit a frequency of collective disdain. Earth's delegation sat in assigned containment fields, 12 humans who represented what remained of their species' government after the Krathox Dominion had shattered their defenses in less than 6 months. Among them was Maya Chen, a 23-year-old former engineering student who had been swept into diplomatic service when the bombs started falling. She wore a simple gray jumpsuit, her black hair pulled back in a practical bun, and her expression gave away nothing. While ambassadors and generals around her shifted uncomfortably, Maya sat perfectly still, her dark eyes fixed on Krathox with an intensity that should have warned him. But Krathox was too busy performing for his audience. "Let me show you," he continued, gesturing with his upper right arm toward the massive holographic display that materialized above them, the laughable attempts these creatures made at defending themselves. The display showed Earth's orbital defense network being torn apart like wet paper. Massive human warships, each one representing decades of engineering and trillions in resources, exploded in silent fury as Dominion forces carved through them with weapons that bent physics itself. Cities burned, continents went dark. The death toll climbed past 2 billion in glowing red numbers. "They built machines," Krathox said, his mandibles spreading in what his species considered a smile. "Simple, crude machines, like children playing with blocks, pretending they could build something that mattered." More laughter from the gallery. Maya's fingernails dug into her palms hard enough to draw blood, but her face remained serene, almost bored. She had learned something important during the invasion, something the rest of the galaxy had apparently forgotten or never known. Humans were very, very good at pretending. "Their weapons," Krathox continued, warming to his subject, "chemical propellants and explosive charges, the technology we abandoned 12,000 years ago. They pointed these antiques at us and truly believed they stood a chance." The display shifted, showing human soldiers firing assault rifles at Dominion troops. The rounds bounced harmlessly off personal shield generators that humans had only theorized about in their most optimistic research papers. Return fire was surgical and devastating, each shot precisely calibrated to cause maximum suffering before death. Their strategy? Another round of clicking laughter from Krathox. Non-existent. They fought with emotion instead of logic, rage instead of calculation. They threw themselves at us like insects against a flame, and like insects, they burned. One of the human ambassadors, an older man named Director Huang, started to rise from his seat. Maya's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. She shook her head once, a tiny movement that somehow conveyed an entire conversation. Huang settled back, confused but trusting. Krathox noticed the exchange. His compound eyes, each one capable of processing visual information across 17 different spectrums, focused on Maya with sudden interest. "You," he said, pointing a clawed finger at her. "The young one who thinks she can control her elders. Do you have something to say? Some pathetic justification for your species' weakness?" The entire assembly went quiet. Maya could feel the weight of thousands of alien eyes, sensors, and perception organs focusing on her. She stood slowly, her movements deliberate and unhurried. The containment field around the human delegation shimmered but allowed her to rise. Permission to address the tribunal, she said, her voice steady and clear. The adjudicator, a being of pure energy contained within a geometric lattice, pulsed with what might have been curiosity. Granted, though I cannot imagine what defense you could offer. Maya stepped forward until she was at the edge of her containment field, as close to Krathox as the safety protocols allowed. She looked up at him, this creature who stood 9 feet tall and weighed perhaps 800 pounds, this general who commanded fleets that could atomize planets, and she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I have a question first. If the tribunal permits, Maya said. The adjudicator pulsed again. Proceed. General Krathox, in your extensive military career spanning, what is it, 300 years? You have conquered 42 civilizations. Is that correct? Krathox's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of pleasure at having his achievements acknowledged. 43, actually. But who is counting besides historians and poets? 43, Maya repeated, nodding thoughtfully. And in each of these conquests, you followed standard Dominion doctrine. Overwhelming force, technological superiority, and psychological warfare are designed to break the enemy morale before the first shot is fired. Correct? Obviously. This is basic military science that apparently escaped your species entirely. And it worked every single time, except once. Maya paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. At the Battle of Kepler Station 3 months ago. Do you remember that, General? The clicking of Krathox's mandibles stopped abruptly. Around the courtroom, delegates who had been preparing to leave, assuming the proceedings were a mere formality, suddenly paid attention. A minor setback, Krathox said. But his voice had lost some of its confident resonance. Your forces sacrificed an entire fleet in a suicidal assault that accomplished nothing. Nothing? Maya's smile widened. We destroyed your flagship. We crippled 2 of your dreadnoughts. We killed 16,000 of your soldiers. And we did it with those primitive weapons you find so amusing. Chemical propellants and explosive charges. Technology you abandoned 12,000 years ago. She took a breath, and when she continued, her voice had taken on a quality that made even the most alien of beings understand they were hearing something dangerous. You know what the difference was, General? At Kepler Station, you finally encountered humans who had nothing left to lose. No homes to protect, no families to worry about, no future to preserve. Just rage. Just a burning, all-consuming desire to make you hurt the way you made us hurt. The holographic display, still under Krathox's control, flickered. For just a moment, instead of showing Dominion victories, it showed something else. Human ships ramming into Dominion vessels at near light speed. Human soldiers detonating their own reactors when overrun. Human pilots steering crippled fighters into enemy formations while laughing. Actually laughing into their open comm channels. You called us fragile, Maya said, and now her voice was rising, filling the massive courtroom with something the galaxy had not heard in a very long time. Defiance backed by proof. You called us short-lived, primitive, weak. You thought you understood us because you conquered us. But General, here's what you never understood. She stepped right up to the edge of the containment field, so close that the energy barrier crackled between them. We are fragile. Our lives are short. Our technology is primitive. You are absolutely correct about all of that. But you know what that means? It means we learned a long time ago that we are going to die. Every single one of us. No, maybe, no, probably. Certainty. And once you truly accept that, once you make peace with your own mortality, you stop being afraid of bullies like you. Krathox's mandibles began clicking again. But faster now, an involuntary stress response. Brave words from a conquered species. What does it matter if you hurt us at Kepler Station? We still won. Earth is ours. Your people are scattered or dead. You have lost, have we? Maya turned to address the entire assembly now, her voice projecting through the same neural transmitters that Krathox had used. General Krathox wants you all to believe that this tribunal is about justice. About holding humanity accountable for resisting their betters. But let me tell you what this is really about. This is about fear. The word hung in the air like an accusation. The Dominion conquered 43 civilizations, Maya continued, and not one of them fought back after the initial defeat. Not one of them organized resistance movements. Not one of them made the Dominion pay for every inch of occupied territory. But humans did. And that terrifies you, doesn't it, General? Ridiculous, Krathox snarled. But several of his arms had unconsciously moved to defensive positions. Is it? Then explain to the tribunal why the Dominion has not moved beyond Earth. You conquered us 6 months ago. By your usual timeline, you should already be glassing Mars and pushing toward Jupiter. But you are not. You are stuck on Earth, fighting an insurgency that costs you more soldiers every single day. You came here expecting a quick victory and a compliant population. Instead, you got humans who would rather die fighting than live under your rule. Maya pulled something from her pocket. The containment field security system scanned it instantly, determining it was not a weapon. It was a small data chip, battered and scorched. This chip contains something the General does not want you to see, Maya said. Battle footage from the last 30 days on Earth. Not the propaganda version he has been showing. The real thing. Adjudicator. I request permission to submit this as evidence. The geometric lattice pulsed with light as the adjudicator processed her request. Denied. This tribunal is not about current military operations, but about judging humanity's conduct during the initial invasion. Of course, Maya said softly. Because if the galaxy saw what was really happening down there, they might start asking uncomfortable questions. Like why the mighty Dominion, conqueror of 43 civilizations, cannot subjugate one primitive planet full of fragile, short-lived mammals. She looked back at Krathox, and her smile was gone, replaced by something colder. You wanted to humiliate us in front of the galaxy, General. You wanted to parade us around as an example of what happens when lesser species resist. But you made a critical mistake. You assumed that because you broke our military, you broke us. You did not. Around the courtroom, delegates were murmuring, their various forms of communication creating a susurrus of sound that spoke to sudden uncertainty. Maya stepped back from the containment field, but her eyes never left Krathox. The General's mandibles had stopped clicking entirely now, frozen in what those familiar with his species recognized as profound unease. Around the courtroom, the assembled delegates leaned forward in their seats, appendages or energy matrices, suddenly aware they were witnessing something unprecedented. You want to know what really happened at Kepler Station? Maya asked, her voice dropping to something almost conversational. Let me tell you a story, General. A story about a 12-year-old girl named Sophie Martinez. The holographic display flickered again, but this time Maya had somehow seized control of it. The image of a young girl appeared, smiling at the camera, wearing a soccer uniform with grass stains on the knees. Just a kid, just a normal human kid who should have been worrying about homework and weekend plans. Sophie was on Kepler Station with her parents. Her mother was a botanist working on sustainable food systems. Her father was a maintenance engineer. Normal people doing normal jobs, trying to build a future for their daughter. They were there when your ships arrived, General. They were there when you gave them exactly 47 seconds to surrender before opening fire. The image shifted. Kepler Station is burning, its agricultural rings spinning wildly as the atmosphere vented into space. People running, screaming, dying. Sophie's parents pushed her into an escape pod, their faces pressed against the small window as they initiated the launch sequence. Then nothing but fire and vacuum where they had been standing. Sophie's pod drifted for 18 hours before a human patrol ship found her, Maya continued. She watched her parents die. She watched 3,000 people, her friends, her teachers, her entire world, torn apart because you wanted to make an example of human defiance. When they pulled her out of that pod, do you know what she said? The courtroom was silent except for the ambient hum of life support systems. She said, "When can I start fighting back?" 12 years old, General. Orphaned, traumatized, alone in the universe. And her first thought was not grief, not despair. It was revenge. Krathox finally found his voice. An anecdote about one child proves nothing. War produces orphans. This is an unfortunate reality that spans all species and all conflicts. You are right, Maya said, nodding. War does produce orphans. But Sophie was not just any orphan. 6 weeks after Kepler Station, she enlisted in the Resistance. Lied about her age. Scored in the 99th percentile on tactical assessment tests. By the time of the second battle of Kepler Station, the one where we hurt you so badly, Sophie Martinez was commanding a fighter wing. The display changed again. Combat footage, grainy and chaotic, showing human fighters engaging Dominion forces. The perspective was from Sophie's cockpit camera. Her voice came through clear despite the sound of alarms and weapons fire. Red Squadron, pattern Delta 7. Make them chase us into the debris field. Blue Squadron, hold position until my mark. Remember, they think we are stupid. Let's show them what stupid looks like when it kills you. Maya let the footage play. The galaxy watched as human fighters, outmatched and outgunned, used the wreckage of Kepler Station itself as weapons. They lured Dominion ships into fields of spinning metal where sensors became unreliable. They sacrificed themselves to create openings for others. They fought with a coordination that should have been impossible given their primitive communication systems. And through it all, Sophie Martinez's voice rang out, calm and cold and absolutely certain. She died in that battle, Maya said quietly as the footage ended with Sophie's fighter disappearing in a bloom of white light. Took out a Dominion dreadnought by ramming her fusion reactor directly into its power core. 12 years old, General. That is what you created when you killed her parents. That is what you created when you decided humans were too weak to matter. Director Huang stood up beside Maya, and this time she did not stop him. His face was wet with tears, but his voice was steady. Sophie Martinez was my granddaughter, he said. And there are 10,000 more just like her on Earth right now. 10,000 orphans who have nothing left except the desire to make you pay. You broke our military, General Krathox. You shattered our defenses. You killed billions of us. But you did not break our spirit. You just gave us clarity about what matters. The adjudicator pulsed with rapid bursts of light, a sign of what might have been agitation. This tribunal is about judging humanity's conduct in war, not about emotional appeals regarding individual casualties. General Krathox, do you wish to respond to these accusations? But Krathox was not looking at the adjudicator. He was staring at Maya, and for the first time, something like fear showed in his compound eyes. You planned this, he said slowly. This entire tribunal. You wanted me to parade your weakness in front of the galaxy. You wanted me to be overconfident. Maya's smile returned, sharp as broken glass. Did you know that humans have a saying, General? Give them enough rope to hang themselves. It means letting your enemy destroy themselves through their own arrogance. You conquered Earth, and you thought that was the end of the story. But you forgot something crucial about humans. She gestured around the courtroom, at the assembled representatives of 47 civilizations. We are storytellers. We have been telling stories since we learned to make fire. Stories about underdogs who triumph over impossible odds. Stories about revenge and sacrifice and never giving up, no matter how dark things get. You thought you were writing our ending, but really, you were just setting up the second act. The Thornback Empire's representative, who had been silently observing, suddenly spoke in a voice like an avalanche. Explain. What is the purpose of this theater? Maya turned to address the entire assembly. Every species in this room has submitted to the Dominion because you believed resistance was futile. You saw their power, did the math, and decided survival was better than defiance. You are probably right. The logical choice is submission. But humans are not always logical. Sometimes we are petty. Sometimes we are spiteful. Sometimes we would rather burn everything down than let bullies win. She pulled out another data chip, and this time, before anyone could stop her, she threw it into the air. It dissolved into a cloud of nanotransmitters that spread throughout the courtroom, bypassing security because the Dominion sensors were designed to detect weapons, not information. Every display in the courtroom lit up simultaneously, not with battle footage this time, but with something more dangerous. Numbers. These are the actual casualty rates for Dominion forces occupying Earth, Maya said. Not the sanitized versions General Krathox has been reporting to his superiors. The real numbers. In the last 30 days, you have lost 40,000 soldiers on Earth. 40,000, fighting what you called a primitive, conquered species. At this rate, you will run out of occupying forces in approximately 8 months. The numbers scrolled past, accompanied by tactical assessments and strategic analyses. The Vex delegates, beings of pure crystallized thought, processed the information instantly. Their collective shimmer changed from mockery to something resembling alarm. Moreover, Maya continued, human resistance forces have successfully reverse-engineered 17 different Dominion technologies. We now have functional shield generators. We have plasma weapons. We have quantum communication systems that you cannot jam. Every day you occupy Earth, we learn. Every day we adapt. Every day we get stronger while you get weaker. Krathox's mandibles were clicking so rapidly now that they created a continuous rattling sound. Lies. Propaganda. The adjudicator will see through this obvious deception. But the adjudicator was silent, processing the data that Maya's nanotransmitters had spread throughout the courtroom. When it finally spoke, its voice carried a frequency that suggested profound recalculation. The data appears authentic. General Krathox, you have been systematically underreporting casualties and overstating pacification progress. Why? Because, Maya answered before Krathox could respond. He knows what will happen if the Dominion realizes Earth is not a victory but a quagmire. They will pull out, cut their losses. And that means 43 conquered civilizations will start asking themselves a very dangerous question. If humans can hurt the Dominion this badly, what could we do if we tried? The courtroom erupted. Delegates were shouting, transmitting, pulsing with light. The Zanari Collective's hive mind fractured into 17 different opinions simultaneously. The Thornback representative was bellowing something about treaty obligations and military audits. Even the usually composed Vex were flickering with what looked like excitement. Maya raised her voice above the chaos. The Dominion wanted this tribunal to show the galaxy what happens when you resist. They got their wish. We are showing you exactly what happens. Yes, they conquered us. Yes, billions died. But we are still here, still fighting, still making them pay for every second they occupy our world. And we will never stop. She turned back to Krathox, and her voice dropped to something only he could hear through his neural translator. You wanted to humiliate us, General. You wanted to break us. But you just gave us the greatest gift you possibly could. You gave us an audience. Every species in this courtroom is watching Earth now. They are seeing the actual costs of resisting the Dominion. And they are doing math that terrifies you. Krathox lunged forward, his massive bulk straining against the safety protocols that kept him separated from the human delegation. You know what you have done? You have sentenced your species to extinction. The Dominion will not withdraw. They will glass Earth from orbit. They will sterilize every continent until nothing lives. Maybe, Maya said calmly. But you know what happens if they do that. Then the galaxy sees the Dominion commit genocide against a species whose only crime was refusing to surrender. They see you murder billions not because you have to, but because we embarrassed you. And every conquered civilization in this courtroom starts wondering when their turn comes. When they become inconvenient. When you decide it is easier to exterminate than occupy. She looked around at the assembled delegates, making eye contact with as many as her human vision allowed. We are not asking for your help. We are not begging for mercy. We are just making sure the galaxy knows what the Dominion really is. We are making sure that when historians look back on this moment, they see humans standing up and refusing to kneel. Even if it kills us. Especially if it kills us. Because some things matter more than survival. The adjudicator's geometric lattice pulsed with a pattern that none present had seen before. This tribunal is adjourned pending full investigation of General Krathox's military reports. The human delegation is hereby granted provisional diplomatic immunity until such time as the facts can be verified. General, you are ordered to report to Dominion High Command immediately. Krathox stood frozen, his 6 arms hanging limp at his sides. He had come to this tribunal expecting to cement his legacy as the conqueror of humanity. Instead, he watched as everything he had built crumbled around him. Worse, he knew Maya was right. The damage was done. The galaxy was watching. And Earth had just become the most expensive conquest in Dominion history. As the delegates began filing out, many of them moved past the human delegation. Some nodded. Some made gestures that might have been respected in their cultures. The Vex delegates paused, their crystallized forms shimmering with a new pattern. Interesting, they said in perfect unison. We will watch Earth with great interest. When the courtroom had mostly emptied, Director Huang put his hand on Maya's shoulder. Sophie would have been proud, he said quietly. Maya's composure finally cracked, just a little. Tears formed in her eyes, but she blinked them away. We bought ourselves time. Maybe 8 months. Maybe a year. But the Dominion will come for us again. Let them come, Huang said. We'll be ready. And now the whole galaxy knows we don't go quietly. Maya looked up at the empty space where Krathox had stood, where he had laughed at human weakness and primitive technology. She thought about Sophie, about the 10,000 other orphans fighting on Earth, about the billions who had died and the billions more who would probably follow, and she smiled that dangerous smile one more time. Yeah, she said, let them come. Outside the courtroom, across 43 conquered worlds, in secret meeting halls and encrypted communication channels, representatives of subjugated species were having conversations they had not dared have in centuries. They were doing math. They were asking questions. They were wondering what might happen if they stopped being logical and started being spiteful. The galaxy had watched one girl stand up to its most feared conqueror, and the galaxy was taking notes.